Welcome back to Money Matters. I'm Emily Johnson, joined by DCrowell. We've been discussing the potential changes due to the potential tax bills that are on the table right now, and wanted to discuss how they impact you and your pocketbook.
I want to first make a correction. The mortgage interest deduction on $1 million at current and $100,000 for an equity line of credit. At 4%, the $1 million mortgage is going to have you paying $40,000 in interest in the course of the year. The $100,000 equity line of credit will be another $4,000. So that's $44,000 of interest, which would be the cap at the moment of deductible interest. That's worth in the pocket of somebody who can afford a $1 million mortgage. That person is likely to be paying somewhere in the region of a 35% marginal tax rate. What that means is that $44,000 of deductibility is worth cash in their pocket, a significant amount of cash in their pocket. At 35% tax rate, it's worth in the vicinity of $24,000 cash in their pocket. If you reduce the interest deductible to $10,000, which has been suggested, it's not a final, but what is final is that there is a tax bill.
Right.
What is not final is the detail, and I refer to those as the Christmas ornaments. The differences between House and Senate are important but peripheral to the core. If it comes out as $10,000, then that essentially, if you convert it back, it means that I'm writing mortgages for people who can deduct their interest up to $250,000 of mortgage money, not up to $1 million of mortgage money.
Right.
That will have the effect of suppressing, could have the effect of suppressing prices on real estate, because the real estate above $250,000 of borrowed money has in effect just gotten more expensive.
It'll be interesting to see what that would do to credit card interest and things like that as well, because there's a lot of people use HELOCs to take out credit if they do renovations on their homes or something like that, because as we know, most Americans don't have a whole lot sitting in the bank in the form of savings. So if something happens that they need to do a renovation on their home, they need to buy a new car, they need to have a health problem, whatever it might be, and usually that money goes on the Amex, and then it sometimes gets converted to a HELOC where it's less expensive and you get the tax deduction. So if you can't do that, it'll be interesting to see what that's going to end up doing with credit cards and credit card companies and credit card interest, and they could end up being a big winner in the whole thing.
What most concerns us is that the prices on more significant pieces of real estate, $500,000 homes, $700 million homes, those prices will be somewhat suppressed or will not grow as quickly, simply because the property has become more expensive for the person buying them.
Right.
The argument for SALT, state and local taxes, is an intense one. It has the same kind of ramifications. In New York, for example.
Well, the reason it seems a little more intense is because, of course, pretty much all the media comes from New York City, and they're the ones driving the news shows, and they're impacted the most.
It's not because the media is there. I have to disagree. It's because the large population concentrations are there.
Okay.
They are the blue states where the large population concentrations are: California, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. High densities of populations.
Just happens to be that that's where most of the news originates, but that's
it's
okay.
Where kind of everything originates.
But so there's not more news.
We're showing our colors
because of it. It's just, you know,
we're showing our colors,
but because it's where more important people are located.
But it's a strange argument that develops if the state and local taxes are no longer deductible, and those state and local taxes are heavy, like they are in New York, it's about another 17%.
Well, we should really get a CPA in here, because you have an option between the state and local taxes and sales tax, right? And isn't that why you're seeing more of the online? We should really bring a CPA into a future show to discuss some of those differences on that, because that would be
Well, in New York, there's a raging battle going on, because Republican representatives from the state of New York are being attacked for voting for the tax plan by their constituents who are saying, look, you're a traitor to our interests, because here we have state and local taxes of 15 to 17% of our income, which we can no longer deduct. So our effective tax rate has just gone up by whatever the marginal tax rate is, if it's 35%, has just gone up by a big chunk by the non-deductibility of that expense.
But, interestingly, when
the answer that the Republican representatives give is, hey, that is in fact going to happen, but the cause is not us. The cause is Albany, New York, which has imposed all of these taxes over the years through frivolous spending. So the argument still becomes the Republican-Democrat seesaw, but the impact of the tax bill in the here and now is going to be somewhat negative for many, many middle-class households. It's going to be somewhat negative.
Well, in theory, you're supposed to see the growth that will offset that, but yes, I mean, you have to.
Well, you can't eat growth.
Again, the unknown.
You can't eat growth. You eat what you have in your refrigerator, not what you might have in your refrigerator in 3 to 5 years.
From a market perspective, though, and maybe it's just a continued climbing the proverbial wall of worry, but from the market perspective, 2018 is still, by most analysts' accounts, the consensus is still up. I mean, certainly we have the doomsdayers. Certainly anything can happen that could turn that. We could have an impeached president. We could have a North Korean bomb. Anything could happen that could cause that to change. But by and large, the consensus is relatively across the board that we should see a continued upmarket in 2018 because demographics favor it, because there's so much cash on the sidelines, because there's about to be more cash to be invested. There's a lot of factors that are driving that forward, and also in theory healthier balance sheets, et cetera, you know, constantly getting updates. This Christmas is looking pretty good. It's by and large looking still. I'm cautiously optimistic, but I suppose I live cautiously optimistic, probably more cautious sometimes than optimistic, but it seems it's a healthy perspective at this point. We are seeing a lot more people that want to put sort of stops in place so that we have an idea of that we're planning from a point of confidence, because my biggest concern when I'm talking with people now is just this idea of complacency, that we are so used to having this nice steady run up that it's our new normal is actually a somewhat complacent normal. And I certainly deal with folks that come in that say, okay, let's go ahead and take some of this off the table. You know, what should we do right now to prepare for the fact that we could be toppy? It's not so much you want to do that as much as prepare for, okay, let's look at the next 30 years based on where we are right now and plan from a position of strength now while things are good, as opposed to waiting for that next 30% blip when we say, oh no, how do I now plan my life from the next 30% blip, and make sure that your portfolio is structured so that you can withstand that 30% blip should it happen, and not be complacent. Because that is my biggest fear for the next year or so, is that there is a sense of complacency and that it will shock folks, especially those that got really hurt in 08, 09, et cetera. So
absolutely. So I'm not sure where we are in the time capsule here, but sort of my wrap-up thought is that in the mortgage banking sector, to address exactly what Emily just addressed, the Mortgage Bankers Association of the United States, that encompasses all of the economic forecasts for our industry and for the economy, is that we will see a recession in the second half of 2018.
Really? Driven by?
Driven by their read of the complex of factors.
Interesting.
A recession which will not impact housing. Housing, there's a long-term shortfall in housing units, and the housing industry is expected to continue to do well. The recession will be mild. It will just be what the economists are predicting is that there'll be a slowdown in GDP growth consistent with a mild recession. So whatever that means, does that mean we're going from 2.75% growth to several quarters of 1.5% growth? It's not clear.
Okay.
But that obviously it's not contrarian, it's different than the underpinning of the tax bill, which is presumptive of a 3 to 4% tax growth, somewhere in that range, that will create additional revenues and additional economic growth and so forth. So
It's very exciting.
it's very exciting.
Lots and lots of ornaments to discuss. Okay, well, please stick with us. We'll be back next week with more Money Matters. Have a wonderful week.